Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating and jaw-dropping discoveries in the world of coin collecting, the 1973 D1-cent coin, a simple Lincoln penny that most people would overlook or spend without a second thought. Yet certain rare examples of this coin have sold or been valued at up to $4 million because of the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and rare conditions that surround them. And as we unpack this remarkable story, we are going to walk through why an ordinary-looking coin can carry such unbelievable value, what specific mistakes and minting errors make it unique, how collectors identify them, the history behind the Denver Mint in 1973, and why the Lincoln cent has always been at the center of so many valuable finds. So sit back and pay attention, because if you've ever had change jingling in your pocket, you might just be holding on to a life-changing fortune without realizing it. Now let's begin with a little context. Because in 1973 the Lincoln penny was struck primarily in copper, the standard composition before the shift to zinc-clad issues that would come later in 1982, and most coins minted at the Denver Mint that year came out perfectly ordinary. Billions of them were produced, but in the mass production of billions of coins, even the smallest error could slip through. And when such an error happens in a way that is visible, dramatic, and rare, the value of that coin skyrockets, because collectors know how difficult it is to find another one like it. One of the major errors that has been reported in the 1973 D penny involves double die obverse mistakes, where the image of Lincoln's bust or the inscriptions like "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date 1973 appear doubled. This doubling effect is caused during the minting process when the die strikes the blank planchet more than once with a slight misalignment, creating ghost-like shadows of letters or features, and serious collectors prize strong doubled dies above almost any other error, especially when they are crisp and dramatic. Another possible error comes from off-center strikes, which occur when the coin blank is not properly seated in the press and the strike lands partially on the coin, leaving parts of the design missing or shifted to one side, depending on how dramatic the off-center strike is and how much detail is preserved. Such an error penny can fetch thousands of dollars. But if combined with other errors, or if it comes from a highly desirable date like the 1973 D, the price can jump into astronomical ranges. Then there are die cracks and cuds, which are raised lines or blobs of extra metal appearing on the coin where the die itself cracked or broke during use. These imperfections were unintentional, but each one tells a story of how the coin was made and adds uniqueness to the piece. Some collectors chase after dramatic die cracks that stretch across Lincoln's face or head, often nicknamed Scarface varieties, while cuds can eliminate entire parts of the design, making the coin almost like a mint-made abstract artwork. Now combine that with the fact that most 1973 D pennies were circulated heavily and often worn down, meaning that any high-grade uncirculated or mint-state examples with errors become even rarer. And when you add rarity with condition and historical appeal, you get the recipe for a multimillion-dollar penny. Another layer of fascination with the 1973 D penny is the possibility of transitional errors. Although officially the composition in 1973 was still 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, sometimes blanks from other denominations or experimental planchets were fed into the presses, creating off-metal strikes. A Lincoln penny struck on a dime planchet, a foreign planchet, or some unusual alloy would instantly be an extreme rarity. Since collectors know how seldom such accidents slip past quality control, now think about the possibilities. A 1973 D penny with a double die obverse, struck slightly off-center, with a retained cut on the reverse, and struck on the wrong planchet would be a one-of-a-kind coin, and in numismatics one-of-a-kind translates to priceless, which is why values climb into the millions, and the $4 million valuation that some rare 1973 D error cents command is not just about the coin itself but about the psychology of collectors. The fierce bidding wars, the prestige of owning something that no one else has, the proof that even the smallest piece of copper can become a symbol of history and wealth. Think about the number of hands an ordinary penny passes through: vending machines, grocery stores, gas stations, pockets, piggy banks, and then imagine one such coin slipping unnoticed for decades until a sharp-eyed collector notices a doubled inscription, an off-strike, or unusual weight, and realizes it's no ordinary penny at all. Suddenly, what was worth 1 cent becomes worth millions. That transformation is what makes coin collecting so addictive, because every pocket full of change carries the thrill of treasure hunting. The 1973 penny is also a reminder of how important condition is. Most pennies from that year are heavily circulated and show wear, scratches, or discoloration, but those very few that were preserved in original mint red condition, shining like the day they were struck, can already bring hundreds of dollars even without errors. Add a dramatic mint error, and you have a combination that breaks auction records. Now, when you hear that a 1973 1 cent has been valued at $4 million, you might think it's exaggerated. But when you examine past auction results of other rare pennies like the 1943 copper Lincoln cent or the 1955 double die, both of which sold for hundreds of thousands and even millions, it becomes clear that rare era pennies consistently shatter expectations. And if a 1943 copper penny can hit over $1 million, why not a 1973 with the right error? After all, rarity, condition, and demand drive prices, and the Lincoln Cent series has one of the strongest collector bases in the world. People love it because it has been in circulation for over a century, it features an iconic president, and it is accessible to beginners while offering extreme rarities for experts. And it is exactly this combination that has turned the 1973 penny with errors into such a phenomenon. Some collectors report repunched mint marks on these coins too, where the D mint mark from Denver was struck more than once, leaving overlapping impressions, and sharp repunched mint marks can increase interest significantly, especially when certified by grading companies. Let's not forget about broad strikes and clipped planchets, where the coin metal was either stretched beyond the collar during striking or clipped during blank cutting, creating unusual shapes and flared rims. These make the coin stand out immediately and, when authenticated, add to its desirability. When you put all of these error types together, double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, off-metal strikes, and clipped planchets, you see the endless possibilities of unique error combinations that make certain 1973 pennies so valuable. And the incredible thing is that such coins could still be out there hiding in jars, drawers, or rolls of pennies at the bank. Collectors often say that treasure hunting for coins is about patience and knowledge, because once you know what to look for, you train your eyes to spot things others overlook, and that's why we encourage viewers to always check their change, always weigh their pennies, always inspect dates and mint marks under magnification, because that simple habit could be the key to unlocking a life-changing discovery. And in the case of the 1973 penny, that discovery could literally mean $4 million. Think about how life-changing that is, from a single coin worth 1 cent to the down payment of multiple houses, a dream car, retirement savings, or simply the pride of holding a piece of history that the world recognizes as priceless. And what's truly fascinating is that such coins not only hold monetary value but also historical and cultural significance. They connect us to the time period they were minted, the workers in the Denver Mint in 1973, the machinery, the process, the flaws, and even the story of how America viewed its currency. When collectors look at a 1973 penny with errors, they don't just see metal, they see a story frozen in copper, a story that survived circulation, decades of pocket wear, and yet remains unique, and that uniqueness is what makes it so magnetic to collectors. So as you watch this video, remember that what you carry in your pocket could be more than change. It could be history, it could be treasure, it could be the very coin that changes your life. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep dreaming, because as the 1973 1 cent worth $4 million has proven, the next fortune could be hiding right in your hand. Next, 1969 1 cent USA coin topic is going to blow your mind as we explore one of the most legendary pennies in US history, the 1969 1 cent coin, a coin that most people would have tossed in a jar, dropped in a vending machine, or used at the corner store. But under very specific circumstances and with very specific mistakes, this unassuming piece of copper can command a jaw-dropping value of up to $7 million. Yes, you've heard that correctly, $7 million for a single penny. And it all comes down to the fascinating world of mint errors, double dies, rare varieties, and historical quirks that make this coin one of the most sought-after treasures in the world of numismatics. So let's dive into the story, the history, and the details that make the 1969 D1 cent so extraordinary. And by the time we're done, you'll understand why collectors are willing to spend millions to own one. Because when we talk about Lincoln cents, we are talking about the most collected coin series in American history, struck continuously since 1909 with Abraham Lincoln's iconic portrait on the obverse and the memorial reverse introduced in 1959, and by the late 1960s billions of these coins were being churned out each year, with the Denver Mint handling massive production runs. Now in 1969 alone over 4 billion pennies were struck across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, so finding something rare among so many coins seems almost impossible. But that's exactly what makes the story so thrilling, because in that ocean of ordinary copper cents a handful of mistakes slipped through, and those mistakes turned ordinary coins into treasures worth millions. One of the most famous errors connected to the 1969 Lincoln cent is the double die obverse variety, where the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, show dramatic doubling, making the letters appear shadowed or overlapped. These are among the most visually striking errors in the entire series, and collectors go crazy for them. But here's the twist. The most famous double die of 1969 is the one without a mint mark, struck in Philadelphia. But in Denver that same year other varieties and errors emerged that pushed their value to unimaginable levels. The 1969 D penny becomes the stuff of legend when you consider its errors in high-grade condition. And it is no exaggeration to say that an MS-67 red example with a dramatic mint error could fetch up to $7 million at auction if the right collectors are competing. So what kind of errors make this possible? Let's start with double dies, because even though the Philadelphia version gets most of the attention, Denver cents can also exhibit hub doubling, repunched mint marks, and other forms of doubling. And when you combine the rarity of those varieties with pristine condition, you have the makings of a multi-million-dollar coin. Then there are off-center strikes, where the blank planchet wasn't correctly seated in the coining press and the design lands partially on the edge, creating a crescent-shaped blank area. If the date and mint mark remain visible, collectors prize these errors enormously. Now imagine a 1969 D off-center strike combined with a strong die crack running through Lincoln's bust or a cut obliterating part of the reverse. Suddenly that coin is unique. And in the world of coin collecting, unique equals priceless. Another factor that boosts the value of the 1969 D penny is condition, because pennies from this period were made of 95% copper. They toned quickly, picked up scratches easily, and wore down fast in circulation. Finding one in brilliant uncirculated condition with full red luster is already tough, but finding one with errors in that grade is almost unheard of, which is why grading services like PCGS and NGC award massive premiums to top-grade coins. And those premiums multiply when errors are present. Then we have transitional and off-metal errors, because mints sometimes accidentally fed blanks intended for foreign coins or other denominations into the presses, resulting in cents struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even foreign copper alloy blanks. Each of these off-metal strikes is a numismatic treasure, and a 1969 D struck on the wrong planchet could easily fetch 6 or 7 figures depending on eye appeal. Then consider die caps, where the coin sticks to the die and strikes subsequent coins, creating bizarre mushroom-shaped errors, or broad strikes that cause the rim to stretch unnaturally, or clipped planchets where a chunk of the blank is missing from the edge. Every one of these mistakes adds value, and when authenticated they can multiply a coin's worth by hundreds or thousands of times. And while most 1969 D pennies remain worth only face value, the handful with these spectacular mistakes become legendary. Think about it this way. Out of billions of coins, only a few might display extreme errors, and out of those only a handful survive in high condition. And out of those only a couple may ever make it into the spotlight of major auctions, and when that happens collectors go wild, bidding each other up because they know they may never see another example in their lifetime. That competitive bidding is what drives prices into the millions, and that's why a 1969 D-era penny can realistically reach $7 million when all factors align. Another fascinating aspect is the repunched mint mark errors of that era, since mint marks were still hand punched into dies in the 1960s. Sometimes the D was punched twice or at an angle, leaving shadows or overlapping impressions. Collectors love these RPMs because they highlight the manual process of die preparation, a glimpse into mint history that was soon automated. Now imagine combining an RPM with a double die obverse, a cud, and uncirculated red luster. And you have a one-of-a-kind coin that would spark headlines around the world. And let's not forget the cultural mystique of Lincoln pennies, because they've always been tied to American history, with Lincoln as the symbol of freedom and unity, and the memorial reverse linking directly to Washington, D.C. So beyond the metal itself, these coins carry meaning. And when a coin like the 1969 D penny is elevated into legendary status, it becomes not just a collector's item but a cultural artifact. One that tells the story of America's minting practices, its errors, its quirks, and its collector's passion, and that passion is what makes people willing to spend $7 million on a cent, because they're not just buying copper, they're buying history, rarity, prestige, and bragging rights. Now imagine finding one of these in your pocket change. It's not impossible. Many era coins have been discovered in the most ordinary ways: coin roll hunting, bank withdrawals, estate sales, flea markets, garage sales, or just rattling around in a jar of change at home. And that's what makes the hobby so exciting, because anyone, anywhere, at any time could stumble across one of these treasures, and the 1969 D penny is one of the most thrilling possibilities. So what should you look for if you want to check your own coins? First, look closely at the lettering. Does Liberty look doubled? Do the words "In God We Trust" look shadowed? Does the date have strange overlaps? Then check the mint mark. Is the D crisp, or does it look like it was punched more than once? Then inspect the overall strike. Is the design centered? Are there cracks, blobs, or missing details? Weigh the coin to make sure it's within normal range, because if it's underweight or overweight, it might be struck on the wrong planchet. And always check the edges for clips. The more dramatic the error, the higher the value. And if you do find something unusual, don't clean it, don't damage it, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Because only then can it truly achieve its maximum value. And with the 1969 D penny, the maximum value could be as high as $7 million, which is life-changing. Think about what that means. A single cent that could buy mansions, luxury cars, vacations, financial security for generations, and yet at its core it's still a piece of American history small enough to slip into your pocket. And that's what makes the story so magical. It's the ultimate treasure hunt, the reminder that value can hide in plain sight, that history is alive in everyday objects, and that fortune sometimes comes when you least expect it. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep looking closely, because the 1969 D penny worth up to $7 million proves that even the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprise.